We got the Green Bay Packers this weekend, Vikings fans. And if you guys don't want to jinx this football team, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. The NFL trade deadline is almost a week away right now, so make sure you guys are subscribed. Stay in the loop on all trade rumors. But coming up on today's show, we got 5 blockbuster trade ideas for the Vikings. Subscribe and lock us in. Man, I'm fired up for the game this weekend. The Vikings got the Green Bay Packers, and the Packers look like one of the worst football teams in the league. So I expect the Vikings to get back to 500 following this week's game, get the 4-4 on the season. I think the Vikings could be buyers next Tuesday on Halloween at the NFL trade deadline. And I got 5 blockbuster trades coming to you guys' way. Listen, these are blockbuster. These are 5 big-time names that I think the Vikings have a chance to go acquire. And let's dive into it, man. We got the Vikings and the Titans in the first trade idea on this one, and I'm sure you guys already know who we're going to be talking about right now, and that is King Henry, the running back from the Tennessee Titans. And listen, I don't think you would have to give up too much for King Henry. I think 2 2024 fifth-round picks with the Vikings getting one from the Zadarius Smith deal and bringing in Derrick Henry in this move, and I think this would be a great move for the Vikes. I mean, you talk about weapons around the NFL. You got the best receiver in the league when he comes back off of IR in Jefferson. We just saw Jordan Addison put on the show on Monday night, sunning Tre'Davious Ward that entire evening. Obviously, you got T.J. Hawkinson, who had a bounce-back game. If you would add in King Henry to this mix, I think it would be a great call. I mean, the dude is an absolute wrecking ball at the running back position. And listen, if you had to go kind of looking at the Vikings' offensive line, they have been fantastic this season. But the biggest question mark is, why can't the Vikings run the football consistently? Because we saw what the Vikings' offensive line did to the 49ers front this Monday night, allowing 1 pressure and no sacks. It was one of the best offensive line performances that I've seen out of this group, and probably since, honestly, I've been being a fan of them. But look at the stats on the year. You're averaging 3.9 yards per carry. And I think a lot of times us fans, we chalk up a bad rushing offense to the offensive line automatically. I think it's the complete opposite with the Vikings this year. I'm going to chalk this up to Alexander Mattison because, listen, he just hasn't had, I think the stat is he hasn't had a 20-yard rush in about 20-plus games or something. And with the Vikings offensive line playing the way it is, if you don't trust in Cam Akers or Ty Chandler to be that true number 1, why not go all in and go get Derrick Henry and create one of the best offenses, I think, in the National Football League, especially with the way Kirk Cousins is playing and this offensive line. Man, the Vikings could be cooking it with grease if they would trade for Derrick Henry. But let me know if you guys would trade for him. If you guys were not, give me a T for trade or give me a P for pass down in the comment section if you guys would trade for Derrick Henry. I'll make this the pinned comment on today's show. So make sure you guys go down there. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. This is a big-time one. It's a Bears trade. I know you're saying, why would they trade in the division? Yada, yada, yada. Well, Kwesi has already had 3 trades within the NFC North, 1 with each team. And this one would be for cornerback Jaylen Johnson. And listen, Jaylen Johnson's a hell of a player. He's having a great year with the Chicago Bears. Would the Bears want to move him? Very unlikely. Obviously, have to wait and see. I think it would come down to what type of draft capital they would get for him. 2nd-round pick. Don't know if they would pull the trigger on that. Maybe a first, but then again, I don't know if I want to give up a first for Jaylen Johnson. But, man, this Vikings cornerback room, defense played great against the Niners. I mean, you hold that offense to 17 points. Obviously, they were without Trent Williams and Debo, but I thought the corners played well. And with the Caleb Evans battling injury, Byron Murphy having a very, very up and down season, Mekhi Blackman, still being a 3rd-round rookie, but he has gotten his feet wet a little bit. But listen, this is an unlikely trade, but really, who knows in the NFL? We've seen it, where the NFL trade deadline as of recent years is a lot like it's kind of very similar to the NBA trade deadline, where in years past, 5-10 years ago, we really didn't see a bunch of guys get moved at the deadline. But nowadays, I think we're starting to see it more often. And could the Vikings get involved in a blockbuster trade like this? I would love it. I mean, if there was probably the best fit and best player combo out there on the trade market right now, it probably is Jaylen Johnson. But again, would Ryan Poles want to trade Jaylen Johnson within the division? Probably not. But hey, who knows? Kwesi hasn't shown no hesitancy. You guys know what I'm talking about, to do so with trading in the division. But 3rd trade idea, I got the Vikings and the Commanders getting a deal done, and this one is all about Chase Young. Chase Young, listen, we've heard it. The Commanders declined his 5th-year option, so he is set to be a free agent the following summer, and maybe the Vikings say, hey, let's go get him now. Let's go get him in our building and go get that second round pick and bring in Chase Young. And I'll tell you what, Chase Young, obviously the past couple seasons, he's been up and down dealing with injuries, but 6 games this year, he's been actually really solid. I mean, 35 pressures in 6 games, that's fantastic. He does have 5 sacks on the year. Pretty solid in the run game. Obviously, it's not his strength. Obviously, he's more of a pure pass rusher, but he's not terrible in the run game. I mean, this guy was a number 1 overall pick for a reason. And my take on why you would trade for a guy like Chase Young, go get Danielle Hunter some help. Like, we've seen the past couple Super Bowl champions, like, they are the best at getting after the quarterback. Like, obviously, you need the top guy like Mahomes and everything. That helps as well. But when the Buccaneers beat Mahomes, they had JPP, Ndamukong Suh, Shaq Barrett coming off the edge. Like, when the Rams won it with Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, like, you got to be able to get after the quarterback. Chase Young would be a great complementary piece to play next to Danielle Hunter, who, as we know, Danielle Hunter is having one of the best seasons of his NFL career, already up to 9 sacks. So I would go out and get a guy like Chase Young. Why not go be a little bit aggressive? Throw him a second-round pick and give him a 3-year deal, and you got 2 of the best edge rushers in the league for the next 5 years. Listen, we got 2 more trades coming up just around the corner, but I got to give a huge shout-out to Prize Picks, today's sponsor of today's edition of Vikings Now. And listen, I love Prize Picks. I use it every Sunday when I'm watching our Minnesota Vikings, and it's the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling versus thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. And listen, I'm rolling with the quarterbacks this week. I got the more on Lamar Jackson and more on Patrick Mahomes, both of their passing yards this season. Listen, I got a little hot take here. I think Lamar Jackson's the second best quarterback in the NFL right now. He's playing his ass off. He killed the Detroit Lions last week. I think he's going to maintain that hot streak, so I'm taking the more on him than the best quarterback in the league. I'm taking the more on Mahomes every single week. You guys can get hooked up with Prize Picks today. Make sure you guys use that promo code CLNS and get a first deposit match up to $100. I'll put that link for you guys in the comments and description of today's show. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use the code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Number 4, this is one I love as well. The Carolina Panthers. We're going to get involved with Adam Thielen. No, I'm kidding. We're getting Derrick Brown. Could you imagine, though, if the Vikings traded for Adam Thielen? I think that would be something. Have him run the wide receiver 3 next to Addison and Jefferson. That would be a ton of fun. But no, we're talking about Derrick Brown, the man in the middle, the run stuffer for the Carolina Panthers. Listen, I like Harrison Phillips. He's had an up-and-down year, and he's been pretty solid. PFF grades him about middle of the pack in the whole league. But Derrick Brown, this guy's a stud. You would have to probably throw him a second-round pick, but for good reason. I mean, he is one of the best run defenders in the NFL. Obviously, his sack numbers aren't going to blow you away, but he is an absolute dog. And I think if this Vikings defense, if they got to have one more addition, obviously I'd probably go corner, but the second position in need, 100% the defensive line. But overall, this defense has turned it around overall. Listen, I think with Brian Flores coming in, I think the biggest difference we saw was going from Ed Donatello to Brian Flores. But also, I think there was a talent upgrade at certain spots. I think this D-line and Danielle Hunter playing under Flores, he's gotten up in his game. We've seen Cam Bynum kind of turn into this little Pro Bowl safety right in front of our eyes with Harrison Smith. The defense has turned it around. Let's just go get more talent in there. Then I really think we can see Brian Flores start cooking up. Vikings got an easy schedule over the next 8 weeks, so go take advantage. I'd go trade for a guy like Derrick Brown. But actually, I said it earlier, the best combination of player and position in need was probably Jaylen Johnson. I'm going to take that back right now. It's probably Patrick Surtain, the corner out of the Denver Broncos, and this would be the biggest blockbuster move. Listen, Patrick Surtain's one of the best corners in the league. Just call a spade here. You would have to give up a lot. Maybe I'm giving up a little too much for Patrick Surtain, but I would give up a first and I would give up a second-round pick. Listen, this would be an all-in move for the Minnesota Vikings. And I would say this, if you were to make this move, I would want the Vikings to extend Kirk Cousins. And I know what you're saying. What is the kind of connection there being? Well, listen, if the Vikings are going to go get a quarterback to replace Kirk, you're probably going to find him in the draft. And whether you just let a quarterback fall to you or you go trade up for one, not having your first and second round pick for next season is not the best way to do so. So I would go extend Kirk, trade for Patrick Surtain. We just saw Kirk, man, ball out on Monday night. He's a top 10 quarterback in my opinion. There's not many other guys in the league that I would want to be rolling into a big-time game with. I mean, Monday Night Football, season on the line against a top 5 defense in the league. They were fully healthy on that side of the football. Kirk killed them for over 375 yards, and he just played great. So I would extend Kirk if you were to make an all-in move for Pat Surtain. It kind of gets me to this point. I really do think the NFC is wide open. And you may be saying, well, the Vikings, no way they can compete with Philly if they have to go there for a playoff game. Listen, Thursday Night Football, the Vikings had a chance to stop the Eagles and get the ball back, and they only lost by 7 points at the end of the game. And the Vikings had terrible turnover luck that game. That was when Jefferson fumbled out of the end zone. That was when Madison had a brutal fumble. Brandon Powell fumbled within the red zone on a punt return on that night. Like, the Vikings can compete with everybody in the NFL. All they need to do is take care of the football and just, play good Viking football, which I think they can. NFC's wide open. I would go in on one of these guys, but I'll give you 5 players that the Vikings could potentially trade for. You just need to give me one. It could be one on my list, or maybe there's a guy I'm not thinking about. Let me know. Name a player you want the Vikings to trade for. And if they trade for any of these guys, we will be making a video, maybe going live on the channel if it's a big name like Pat Surtain or something like that. But thank you guys so much for watching today's show. We are going to be live for the Vikings-Packers game this upcoming week, so make sure you guys do subscribe. See you guys later. As always, go Vikes.